Chapter 2320. Flaunting Well 4. I never took any elite pill of yours. I'm warning you, if you want to slander me, you'd best find someone with poor pill refining skills. Or else, don't complain when you find yourself in an embarrassing place. Su Luo smiled icily. Li Luoming had his hands behind his back, standing tall. Someone with poor pill refining skills? From what I see, the one with the worst pill refining skills in the whole pill refining tower is you. Come on, don't listen to her nonsense. Catch her. The atmosphere was tensing up again, and Su Luo didn't look like she was too comfortable either. Li Luoming, do you know what place this is? Su Luo swept her gaze around. Li Luoming naturally knew what this place was. If he didn't, he wouldn't have boldly brought so many people. This is where senior brother Luo lives, but it's not somewhere you, a measly top 100 on the dragon list, can live. You living here is a breach of regulations in the first place, so it is a matter of fact that you should get out. Li Luoming had done his research ahead of time, knowing that Su Luo had not gone to any trial since coming in, and that Luo Yichen had long since left Wuchen Mountain to rush to the extraterritorial battlefield had given him confidence. If Luo Yichen was here and even remotely aware of the situation, he might not dare to provoke her, despite Li Luoming's presence. So, what you mean is since senior brother Luo isn't here, you dare to bully me? Su Luo grinned as she stood there, her expressions unwavering. You're not afraid that senior brother Luo will come after you once he's back. Li Luoming was indeed scared, but so what? That would only happen if senior brother Luo was able to come back at all. Li Luoming spoke in a righteous and justified tone, with a dead serious manner. Su Luo, the evidence for your theft is irrefutable. Su Luo was about to laugh out of sheer disbelief for how far the truth had been distorted. It turned out that framing people could be done with such brazen confidence and justice. For misfortune to befall her even when she was sitting at home, it was simply an eye-opener for her. As expected, this was the world of the strong, where the strength of one's fist was absolute, right? Did he really believe that Su Luo had no one left to support her? Would she say that that eighth elder was completely under her thumb? Su Luo smirked. Li Luoming, you really are audacious. If they treated her like this today, once the city lord came back, both you and the master would eat. Seeing Su Luo's scornful glance, Li Luoming's heart abruptly shuddered. In that instant, some kind of fear towards Su Luo suddenly rose up within him, and he had no idea why. Hurry up and detain her! Li Luoming shouted, flustered. Big Sister Wei once again charged forward, but she was stopped by Su Luo. Su Luo was worried. Su Luo believed that if a real battle broke out, these bodyguards weren't a match for her in the first place. But she couldn't lay a hand on them. Because this was Wuchen Mountain, the members of Xiao Luo's group were still inside cultivating. If the commotion was too loud and were affected by it, and resulting in the recoil of madness, Su Luo would definitely regret it for the rest of her life. Therefore, Su Luo used another plan. Just as Li Luoming's men ferociously charged forth, a sudden fierce wind reached them. Stop! The eighth elder's figure appeared in the sky above Wuchen Mountain. Once Li Luoming saw the eighth elder, a suspicion flashed across his mind. Had the eighth elder come here to help Su Luo? No. Su Luo had supposedly killed the eighth elder's disciple. How could the eighth elder be helping Su Luo? Then, the only possible conclusion was the eighth elder was here to strike her while she was won. Thus, Li Luoming enthusiastically greeted. Eighth elder, you have arrived just in time. Su Luo here has stolen my master's elite pill prescription, and we were just preparing to arrest her and bring her to justice. Chapter 2321. Flaunting Wealth 5. Right now, Su Luo was looking at the eighth elder with a half-smile, an enigmatic look in her eyes. The eighth elder's face turned furious in an instant. Nonsense! The eighth elder angrily rebuked Li Luoming. What proof is there? Bring it out. Li Luoming was dumbstruck. Could it be that the eighth elder wasn't here to kick Su Luo while she was down? Looking at him, it seemed like he was helping her. Su Luo smiled coldly. That's right, Li Luoming. You should bring out any proof you have. Anyone can make empty promises. Li Luoming snorted. 100 apothecaries saw it firsthand on the pill refining tower. Is there a need for proof? Li Luoming had spoken for all the poor, unwitting people of the pill refining tower. The 8th elder furrowed his eyebrows and passed his gaze over Su Luo. Su Luo hadn't been counting on the 8th elder to help her resolve this. She had only dragged him to seize the commotion. Right now, Su Luo was smiling again. Wow, to think that so many people saw me steal your pill prescription. Then how could you not see or feel it? Are you an idiot? Li Luoming. Su Luo asked with a grin. You're saying that I stole your elite-grade marrow-cleansing pill prescription, right? Of course. You're certain that it's only an elite marrow-cleansing pill prescription, not a master pill, a grandmaster pill, or even an emperor pill prescription? Su Luo grinned like a cunning little fox. Li Luoming burst out laughing. Master marrow-cleansing pill? Grandmaster marrow-cleansing pill? Emperor marrow-cleansing pill? Su Luo, could you possibly not joke anymore? Not even my master had any grandmaster and emperor marrow-cleansing pill prescriptions. How could you have stolen them? Very well said. Su Luo stared at him with a smile, then seriously nodded her head. Remember what you had said. Li Luoming's scalp trembled under Su Luo's fixed gaze. He felt that he was neglecting something very important, but for the life of him, he couldn't think of just what could it be. At this moment, Su Luo had already decided. Since the 5th elder was so concerned about the 9 yin and 9 yang falling cloud flower she had, then if there wasn't success the first time, another attempt should be made. The saying goes, there are only being thieves for 1,000 days, and never preventing thieves for 1,001. So, she wanted to announce her status as a Grandmaster Apothecary in a clear and dignified manner, to earn the protection from the higher-ups in the genius training camp. This way, the 5th elder would no longer have the guts to frame her so brazenly. All right, I'll go with you. Su Luo smiled. The 8th elder will come too. Right now, Su Luo needed someone who could support her to make her appear stronger. Senior brother Luo was the most suitable for this, but now there was only the 8th elder to choose. The 8th elder had no objections. Thus, the group of people headed for the pill refining tower. Inside the pill refining tower, the first 3 floors had long since been packed with people. At this moment, almost all of them came out. She's here. She's here. That girl who stole the pill prescription is here. What a pretty little miss, to think that she would be a petty thief. How is she merely a petty thief? She's a pillager? Okay. That was an elite marrow-cleansing pill. Su Luo had just arrived, and those people were accusing and framing her one after another. The 5th elder sat comfortably on a high-ranking wooden armchair, holding a fragrant tea in one hand, drinking it sip by sip, his posture carefree yet pleasant, and seemed to be listless. Once Su Luo arrived, she was immediately surrounded. The 5th elder, who had a relaxed smile, was stunned for a moment after seeing the 8th elder. Chapter 23-22. Flaunting Wealth 6. Old 8th, you're here too? The 5th elder's attitude was neutral, neither lukewarm nor cold. He has always been in charge of the pill refining tower and specialized in apothecary. The rest of the elders had to come to him if they wanted any pills. Therefore, he was used to act however he liked. With a pleasant demeanor, the 8th elder found a place to sit beside the 5th elder and said stiffly, I am here to watch the excitement unfold. This is where the fun begins. Old 8th, you're not here to have fun, but to help the thief, right? The 5th elder was testing the waters while being suspicious. If the old 5th is impartial, then this younger brother will just be here to watch the fun and won't get involved. The 8th elder curled his lips. The underlying meaning was that if the 5th elder handled things unfairly, then he should not blame him for interfering. The 5th elder was furious for a moment. He just wanted to convict Su Luo right there. However, with the presence of the 8th elder, he couldn't do it arbitrarily. The 5th elder glanced at Su Luo and softly said, Girl, do you plead guilty? Su Luo stood proudly, said with confidence, No. The 5th elder sneered. Both testimonial evidence and physical evidence are here. You can't deny it. testimonial evidence and physical evidence. Su Luo didn't know whether she should laugh or cry at this moment. She hadn't done anything, and there was evidence? This sure was the biggest farce in the world. Then where is the evidence? I am curious about who in the world had such a heinous heart to dare frame me for stealing without rhyme or reason. Su Luo sneered coldly. Soon after Su Luo said this, the so-called evidence showed up. The first witness to come up was a strong, sturdy man with scratches on his forehead. In fact, Su Luo had dealt with him indirectly before. He was the one who had controlled the earth fire in the small dark room. Once the burly man got up, as soon as he saw Su Luo, he angrily cursed, "Stinky girl, it's you. I saw you stole Master Li's prescription with my own eyes. Because I saw you at the time, you then beat me up like this." Su Luo silently praised this burly man's best actor performance, with his righteous indignation as he cried out in pain and lost his voice. Then, the rest of the witnesses also came up to accuse Su Luo. Some said they happened to pass by and had seen it at that time. Some said they were threatened by Su Luo, thus they did not dare to speak out. Some said they had moments of weakness, seeing how beautiful she was. The general statement was, Su Luo did steal Li Luoming's elite marrow-cleansing pill prescription. Under many people's unanimous accusations, if they are just bystanders, even without shivering, they will surely be flushed with anger, right? Nonetheless, Su Luo did not. She stood there indifferently, with her simple colored dress swaying in the wind, looking majestic and dignified. Su Luo smiled faintly. "What you guys are talking about? Is it really an elite marrow-cleansing pill prescription?" Su Luo emphasized this term again. "It's the elite marrow-cleansing pill prescription. Yes, this is it. I swear, it is the elite marrow-cleansing pill prescription." Su Luo smiled and looked at Li Luoming. "What do you think?" It was indeed the elite marrow-cleansing pill prescription. "Su Luo, if you still don't believe me, then let's show the physical evidence to see how you quibble." Li Luoming was very proud. "There is physical evidence? Then quickly, let's take them all out. I've been looking forward to this for a long time." Su Luo's smile caught many people off guard. Was this really the thief who had been scolded by the public? She seemed very delighted from her looks alone. What the hell was going on? What's wrong with this world? Chapter 23. Flaunting Wealth 7. Li Luoming coldly hummed. "Su Luo, you should stop your trickery. The net of heaven is wide. Acts of evil won't get unnoticed by the gods. Since you have committed a sin, the heavens will not help you anymore. Even the people from your own camp will turn against you when they learn their conscience was wronged. Bring out the people." Li Luoming waved his hand in an arrogant manner. Soon a person was brought up. It was an ordinary-looking middle-aged woman, the kind who would not be found if she was submerged in a sea of people. However, Su Luo recognized her at a glance, because she indeed saw her before. She met her at Brother Luo's manor. This Annie was a cleaner. She came to clean for an hour every afternoon. Brother Luo disliked loud noises. Therefore, all of the servants, except for the housekeeper, were not allowed to live in the manor. "Su Luo, you do know her?" Li Luoming pointed at that Annie with extreme smugness and sneered at Su Luo. "I know her." Su Luo told the truth. "The Annie who cleans the manor. It's good that you admit it." Li Luoming thought Su Luo would not admit it. He had long thought a backup plan. However, Su Luo was unpredictable in her actions, so he did not need his backup plan. But it didn't matter, as long as Su Luo could be convicted. "Annie Lin, hand over the physical evidence." Li Luoming put his gaze upon Auntie Lin. At this moment, not only Li Luoming, but all eyes were on Auntie Lin. Even the 5th elder and the 8th elder looked at her like they were watching a good show. Auntie Lin was just an underling who sweeps. Being in this situation, she was trembling nervously all over her body. She didn't even dare to raise her head. Li Luoming patted Auntie Lin's shoulder and gave her a threatening look. After receiving the meaning of his look, Auntie Lin finally gritted her teeth, gathered courage, and handed over a piece of silk cloth with both hands. This is the physical physical evidence. It was a smooth and delicate pure white silk cloth. After unfolding it, people could see densely packed lines of writing on it. "Where did you get this thing?" Li Luoming asked pretentiously. "Picked it up." Annie Lin gulped nervously. Under Li Luoming's threatening gaze, she kept her head down while pointing her finger at Su Luo. From her room, "You're talking nonsense." Su Luo coldly gazed at her, a chilling glare bursting out from the bottom of her eyes. Being interrupted by Su Luo, Annie Lin was so frightened that her whole body collapsed on the floor. Seeing this, Li Luoming snatched the silk cloth in Auntie Lin's hand, took a glance before respectfully handing it to the fifth elder. "Master, is this your handwriting? Your disciple wasn't mistaken, right?" The fifth elder leisurely glanced at it, then picked up his teacup and calmly drank his tea. Although there was only one word, with his word, Li Luoming had something that he can rely on. He turned around and directed a cold stare at Su Luo, speaking righteously, as if he was the embodiment of justice, and asked one word at a time. "Now what else do you have to say?" Su Luo glanced with a smirk at Annie Lin, who was on the floor, then swept her gaze around, and finally fixed her eyes on the fifth elder. She let out a soft sigh and curled her lips in disdain. As the fifth elder, to use such an underhanded method is simply stupid. Once Su Luo's words came out, the whole room went silent. No one expected her to say such an unethical thing. That was the fifth elder, the man in charge of the pill refining tower. How dare she call the elders stupid in public? Chapter 23-24. Shocking 1. At this moment, the crowd unconsciously wanted to cover their eyes. They were afraid of seeing a scene where Su Luo's blood would instantly be splattered. Fifth Elder never expected that Su Luo would be so blunt. Before he could swallow his sip of tea, it suddenly got stuck in his throat, and he coughed violently. "Why this?" Fifth Elder had yet to even finish speaking when Su Luo sneered and interrupted him. "You all thought I stole the prescription for the elite marrow-cleansing pill, right?" Everyone nodded fervently. "Huh, how ridiculous, truly ridiculous," Su Luo said with a mocking laugh. She stared straight at Li Luoming and continued, "Since you keep claiming that I stole the prescription for elite marrow-cleansing pill, do you dare compete with me?" "In what?" Li Luoming frowned. Seeing that he would soon be able to declare Su Luo as guilty of the theft, he did not want to cause more problems for himself. "In pill refining," Su Luo sneered while looking directly at him. "Compete in pill refining?" Li Luoming laughed loudly. "A competition in pill refining? You dare to compete with me in pill refining?" Ha ha ha, Li Luoming really thought this was a particularly funny thing. He was the most gifted amongst the younger generation of disciples in the pill refining tower. In fact, he was already an elite apothecary now. Yet Su Luo was so brazen as to want to compete with him in pill refining? Yes, in pill refining. Su Luo smiled nonchalantly. "The prescription for the elite marrow-cleansing pill, you even dared to frame me for stealing such a crappy thing. I really don't know what to say about you people. The elite marrow-cleansing pill was a crappy thing?" Everyone was too stunned to react. Su Luo's tone was extremely bold. "That's such big talk. Aren't you afraid it'll come back to bite you? I think you are only an advanced apothecary at best. You're so weak, yet you dare to look down on the elite marrow-cleansing pill?" Li Luoming was furious. "Since that's the case, a competition is the way to go." Su Luo smiled lazily. "If I can refine a master marrow-cleansing pill, will that clear my name?" When Su Luo said this, Li Luoming suddenly realized something. Oh, so she wanted to use this strategy again. It turned out that Su Luo had a master marrow-cleansing pill hidden in her possession, so she wanted to take it out and pretend that she had refined it herself, right? Li Luoming greatly despised people like Su Luo. Thus, he laughed heartily while mocking her. "Oh, Apothecary Su, you are so amazing. You can actually refine a master pill? How truly terrifying." Su Luo rolled her eyes. "This nut job." Li Luoming coughed twice and returned to normal. "Since you want to prove your innocence so much. Fine, let's compete. However, I have one condition." "What condition?" Su Luo tugged her lips into a humorless smile. We must compete in public. Li Luoming felt that he was extremely clever. In a public competition, everyone would be watching. Su Luo, you won't be able to use the pill you already have for the competition now, right? Additionally, Li Luoming had a deeper purpose for this. Hadn't Su Luo used a master pill to fool his master in order to escape once? This time, he would have Su Luo show her true form and let everyone know she was a sham. Li Luoming gave his own quick-wittedness a thumbs up. In public, Su Luo seemed a little troubled. Seeing Su Luo's troubled expression, Li Luoming was unwilling to spare her and switched from a passive stance to an active one. Yes, we must compete in public. Su Luo, do you dare to do so? When he saw that Su Luo was hesitating, he added, Didn't you say that you can refine a master marrow cleansing pill? If you can refine it in front of everyone, who would dare to say that you stole elite marrow cleansing pill? Wouldn't that person be a fool? So, Su Luo, if you want to prove your innocence, you only have this one option of competing with me. Chapter 23-25, Shocking 2. Li Luoming was now afraid that Su Luo would not dare to compete with him. Without competing, how could Li Luoming show his superior strength? They had to compete. They absolutely had to compete. Under Li Luoming's urging, Su Luo silently glanced at Fifth Elder. Fifth Elder's eyes flashed with a strange and inexplicably cold light. He was not as brainless as Li Luoming, so he was much more cautious against Su Luo. In order to prevent more issues from arising, Fifth Elder glanced at Li Luoming disinterestedly. A competition? There's no need for that. Now that all of the witnesses and evidence had been gathered, the matter was nearing its end, and they could have Su Luo rightfully imprisoned. So why would they still be afraid of being unable to obtain the 9 yin and 9 yang falling cloud flower? Therefore, Fifth Elder was opposed to the idea. When Fifth Elder said so, Li Luoming suddenly felt a little upset. Would his opportunity to shine in public be lost just like this? At this time, the Eighth Elder laughed. Fifth Elder, there seems to be an error in your words. The fastest way to clear Su Luo of suspicion would be for them to compete in front of everyone. So why are you against it? Could it be? The ellipses at the end of that line really stirred up one's imagination. Fifth Elder's expression turned dark in an instant. He just knew that the Eighth Elder had no good intentions in suddenly coming over here to oversee the situation. This Eighth Elder was truly despicable. His own disciples had been killed by that wretched girl, and he was still protecting her? At this moment, the Eighth Elder had already turned his gaze towards Su Luo. He asked in a light voice, What do you say? Su Lu stepped out with her head held high and her voice clear and cold. If I refine a master marrow cleansing pill in public, you'll be able to see without a doubt that I am innocent. But if I can't refine a master marrow cleansing pill, I am willing to hand over the 9 yin and 9 yang falling cloud flower, even though this isn't enough to prove that I stole the prescription for the master marrow cleansing pill. Su Luo beamed as she looked at Fifth Elder. Didn't he want the 9 yin and 9 yang falling cloud flower? She didn't believe that he would still oppose the competition if she threw out this bait. Sure enough, Fifth Elder took the bait. Since you're rushing to prove your innocence, sure, compete in public, Fifth Elder finally agreed. Su Luo nodded. If she had to compete in public, then so be it. After all, she wasn't like some pointlessly gorgeous embroidered pillow. She had real strength. At this moment, everyone gathered around, forming a circle. Do you think that Su Luo can refine a master marrow cleansing pill? Of course, it's impossible. She's so young. Even if she started learning just after she was born, she definitely wouldn't be able to reach the master apothecary. Wasn't it said that she refined a master pill before? Sheesh, you even believe such a rumor? Su Luo was cheating. She had a master pill in her possession, and she just took it out when she emerged from the room. To think that this girl actually cheated. Listening to these rumors, Su Luo sneered inwardly. As long as she refined the master pill in public, she would be able to prove her innocence. After all, A master apothecary would only steal their opponent's elite pill prescription if they were crazy, especially when this was occurring in the pill refining tower where every kind of pill refining tool and medicinal herb could be found. Soon, two pill refining furnaces were placed in front of Li Luoming and Su Luo. Naturally, Li Luoming was going to refine his elite marrow cleansing pill. Li Luoming was extremely proud of himself for that. This was because it had not been long since he had gotten promoted to an elite apothecary, and he had just learned how to refine the elite marrow cleansing pill. So, he very complacently wanted to show off to everyone. When Li Luoming was making the pills, his movements were frivolous, and his whole body was about to float with complacency. On the contrary, Su Luo, the difference between what she and Li Luoming were refining lay in the 3 bundles of herbs she chose for refining the marrow cleansing pill. Chapter 23-26. Shocking 3. When the crowd saw that she had split the ingredients in 3 portions, they all laughed. They felt that Su Luo was being prepared. If one portion was unsuccessful, there is a second portion. If the second portion also failed, there was the third portion waiting. Even though there were all kinds of negative whisperings sounding in her ears, Su Luo was unmoved. She had been calm and composed from the beginning to the end. Her movements and the fluttering of her sleeves were smooth like the floating clouds and flowing water, fascinating the onlookers. All they knew was that Su Luo asked for 3 portions of medicinal herbs, but no one expected that she would ask for an additional of 3 medicinal furnaces. What is Su Luo doing here? Aren't those 3 medicinal herbs for backup? Is she going to fire all 3 furnaces at the same time and count on whichever one succeeds? Isn't this nonsense? Juggling 3 furnaces at the same time. Did she think she is a grandmaster apothecary? Hey, look at it. Su Luo really started all 3 furnaces at the same time. Oh gosh! What on earth is she doing? If she really does this, I can say for sure that she won't succeed in any of them. Su Luo is destined to lose. Those who were still somewhat skeptical earlier, after watching Su Luo's actions, they turned away, unwilling to believe in Su Luo anymore. At this time, Su Luo's beautiful face was still maintaining a slight grin, as if anything, anyone, or any words could not affect her emotions. Only the 5th elder looked at Su Luo with an incomprehensible gaze. She can't do it, the 5th elder murmured. At this moment, the 8th elder curled up his lips and smiled. What other people cannot accomplish, that girl can definitely do it, because her existence is to strike down others' confidence. Nonsense. The 5th elder snorted coldly. The 8th elder was not impressed. Just wait and see if you don't believe me. The 8th elder had a lot of confidence in Su Luo. Even though he was 100 times stronger than this girl, he had suffered badly several times in her hands. In the end, he even almost lost his life. Thinking back on how he had suffered before, and then looking at the 5th elder's furrowing brows, the 8th elder got in a better mood. This was perhaps because he knew someone would get it worse than he had. 2 hours later, the sun rose to its peak. This moment was the hottest time of the day. Also, it was the time to open the furnace for the marrow cleansing pill. Li Luoming bent his knees and shouted, drawing all the attention from the audience, then slowly lifted the top cover of the furnace. A gust of fresh breeze blew by. The rich fragrance unique to the elite marrow cleansing pill diffused with the wind and drifted out far away. It's really an elite marrow cleansing pill. Li Luoming's progress is really fast. Yes, he is already an elite apothecary now. Perhaps in another 10 years he might be promoted to master apothecary. It depends on his opportunity. If he has no luck, it may take 30 years or possibly 50. I have to say, Li Luoming has such great talent. The 5th elder had taken in a good disciple. Faced with compliments from the crowd, Li Luoming felt extremely flattered. Li Luoming carefully put away the pills, and then walked towards Su Luo triumphantly. Within a few steps, he came to stand still in front of Su Luo, raising his eyebrows to provoke her. Oh, it's not ready yet? Let me see, what level is this refined pill? Why does it smell like an elementary pill? Li Luoming almost raised his tail up. Chapter 23-27. Shocking 4? Huh. Li Luoming suddenly froze. Su Luo's refinement was exactly the same as his. It was also an elite marrow-cleansing pill. Moreover, Li Luoming found that the pill Su Luo had refined was superior than his, both in terms of color and fragrance, which made him panic a little while turning into a rage out of humiliation. Li Luoming had a bright idea. He pointed at Su Luo and scolded, still saying, "You didn't steal my elite marrow-cleansing pill prescription? If you didn't steal it, how can you make the same pills as me? It's obvious that you stole it. Come on, arrest her." Seeing Su Luo was so calm and collected, Li Luoming had a bad feeling in his heart. Therefore, he wanted to act first. However, would things really go on as he wished? The fifth elder stood up and was about to walk over, but the eighth elder stopped him and said with a smile, "Let the young people play in their young people games. Let's just sit and watch the show." The fifth elder spent all his time on refining medicine. How could he be the eighth elder's opponent? With a gentle pull, the eighth elder forced the fifth elder back to his seat, preventing him from going over and causing trouble for Su Luo. At this time, Su Luo smiled and opened the second quadrant. "Let's not talk about arresting me for now. Let's take a look at this second quadrant instead." When the lid of the second quadrant was opened, an aroma filled up the people's noses, refreshing their hearts and souls, which relaxed their spirits and lifted up their mood. "Oh my! This seems to be... This fragrance, it's too mellow and rich, very much like a master pill. Right? That's right, it's a master pill. It definitely is." In a flash, everyone flocked wildly towards Su Luo's side. They had seen Su Luo refine pills with their own eyes. If she could really refine master pills, at her current age, she was truly a supreme genius. There were 3 pills in total, plumply lying inside the pill furnace, emitting a hint of spiritual energy. Li Luoming's body froze. A chilling breeze surged upward from the soles of his feet and soon spread to all his limbs and bones. Li Luoming felt like he was dreaming. In the dream, Su Luo had actually refined the master marrow-cleansing pill. This dream was too terrifying. However, the unbelievable exclamations and praises one after another from the bystanders quickly brought Li Luoming back into reality. This was not a dream. This was real. Su Luo really refined the master marrow-cleansing pill. How did it turn out like this? How could this happen? Li Luoming felt that the sky was spinning. He felt dizzy and his vision blurred, his legs giving out on him, and he could hardly stand. Su Luo smiled and looked at Li Luoming. "How was it? Master marrow-cleansing pill." Everyone watched the refining process with their own eyes. "Did you refine it?" Li Luoming. He had just been promoted to an elite apothecary. "How could I refine it? I can easily refine the master marrow-cleansing pill. Could it be that I had brain issues and stole your elite marrow-cleansing pill?" Although Su Luo was smiling, it did not reach the bottom of her eyes. It was then the few people who accused Su Luo beforehand saw the situation had changed for the worse. They had turned their heads and wanted to slip away. However, before they could run and get a few steps in, they were caught by Big Sister Wei. Big Sister Wei caught one and threw that person to Su Luo's side. Soon, these 5 or 6 people were piling on top of each other like a human pyramid. They were all screaming in pain. Chapter 23-28. Shocking 5. Trying to sneak away, but I threw them back in. Big Sister Wei stood beside this group of people with a big wooden club, smashing the foreheads of those who tried to run away. Li Luoming now just wanted to die. He was full of regrets, to the point that his face turned blue. If he didn't compete with Su Luo, he wouldn't have let Su Luo clear her name so easily now. If Su Luo could clear up the accusations, it would be like slapping him in his face. What was even more revolting was that he took the initiative to force Su Luo to refine the pills in public. When Li Luoming thought of this, he just wanted to cry. Su Luo looked at him with a grin, then looked at the 5th elder, whose face had turned pale with a smile. Her eyes were gleaming like the stars. By now, Li Luoming had already come back to his senses. He pointed at Su Luo and shouted loudly, "It must be luck. This must be luck." An elite apothecary would have had a certain chance of being able to refine a master pill. Li Luoming's words were not false. It was as if Su Luo was currently at master apothecary, but she could go above and beyond and could refine a grandmaster pill when she was lucky. There was indeed such a chance. However, this statement by Li Luoming reminded many people. I didn't expect this Su Luo to be so lucky, for her to stumble upon such a slight chance. At her young age, being able to be promoted to an elite apothecary level was already amazing, and she even went above and beyond to refine a master pill. This talent was even better than Li Luoming. But that doesn't prove that she didn't steal the elite marrow-cleansing pill. So, the problem came back again. Su Luo still had not cleared the injustices. The fifth elder stroked his goatee and cast an admiring glance at Li Luoming. This disciple was not bad. He was witty. The fifth elder looked at Su Luo leisurely and faintly spat out a sentence. "Little girl, even the level of a master pill couldn't prove your innocence completely. What else can you do to prove your innocence?" Su Luo smiled. "If I can prove my innocence, then will the fifth elder publicly apologize to me for this slander?" Everyone looked at Su Luo with a worshipful look. So amazing. This girl was really rebellious. There was nothing too taboo in her dictionary. She dared to talk to fifth elder like that. At this moment, Su Luo not only dared to speak, she also stared at the fifth elder without hesitation. The corners of her mouth perked up, fearlessly meeting the fifth elder's gaze. As if at this moment, her position was even more revered than the fifth elder. As if she was the master and the fifth elder was a servant. The aura of standing in the clouds, overlooking the masses, an aura evoking that she could be seen from afar but not to be disrespected. It made people feel a sense of awe and submission to Su Luo. This was the aura of a leader to which all the people are subservient. The fifth elder was almost choked by Su Luo's questions. Since Su Luo appeared, the fifth elder discovered that his prestige was being weakened by her provocations time and time again. This was a very bad phenomenon. Su Luo was still dominating here. The fifth elder dared to forcibly send people to kidnap me here with falsified evidence, but didn't have the courage to admit his wrongdoings in public. Su Luo's watery eyes, looking directly at the fifth elder. Everyone's gaze was all directed at the fifth elder. The eighth elder also casually added, "Fifth elder, be responsible for your own actions." Chapter 23-29. Shocking 6. Such a wonderful drama. How could they watch the fifth elder put an abrupt end to it? Therefore, everyone stared at the fifth elder and stared at him again longingly. The fifth elder wanted to be done with this whole debacle. However, under such gazes, he knew that his prestige would fall to the bottom in the future if he dared to leave. Haha, unless that third cauldron of yours is the Grandmaster Marrow-Cleansing Pill. Otherwise, it won't prove your innocence. The fifth elder had stood up, but now sitting down again, coldly looking at Su Luo, speaking indifferently. Grandmaster Marrow-Cleansing Pills? Su Luo deliberately paused and looked at the fifth elder with a serious face, aggressively. If I make a Grandmaster Marrow-Cleansing Pill in public, will the fifth elder apologize to me in public? The fifth elder sneered. It was lucky that this brat was able to refine a master pill. How could she possibly refine a Grandmaster Marrow-Cleansing Pill? What's more, he had personally seen Su Luo refine 3 medicine furnaces at the same time. If she could still refine a Grandmaster Marrow-Cleansing Pill under such circumstances. If you can refine a Grandmaster Marrow-Cleansing Pill, then I will eat that furnace. The fifth elder spoke with a confident voice. Good. Su Luo was afraid that the fifth elder would regret his actions. She took the lead and clapped. The rest of the people still had to make a living under the fifth elder. How dare they applaud so brazenly? But they all had a gossipy and curious gaze in their eyes. Fifth elder and eighth elder, please come forward. Su Luo was already standing next to the third medicine furnace at this instance. Everyone looked at her acting like usual, even smiling slightly, and began to doubt in their hearts. Could Su Luo be able to refine a Grandmaster Marrow Cleansing Pill? On second thought, it'd be ridiculous. You really thought Grandmaster Marrow Cleansing Pills were a walk in a park? If it was really that easy to refine, would it still be so rare? Would they still be that expensive? Everyone did not believe that Su Luo could refine the Grandmaster Marrow Cleansing Pill. All their eyes were wide open, staring fiercely at Su Luo's hand holding the lid of the medicine furnace. The fifth elder and the eighth elder came shoulder to shoulder. The eighth elder gave the fifth elder a sympathetic look. "Old fifth, do you have good teeth?" The fifth elder glared at the eighth elder with hatred. "Don't curse at me." The eighth elder looked at the fifth elder with more pity. He patted the fifth elder's shoulder. "Take advantage while the medicine furnace is yet to be open. Hurry and change your verdict quickly. Your brother can only help you this far." "Nah." The fifth elder was stubborn with his own beliefs. Grandmaster Pill. Would a Grandmaster Pill be refined by a rookie like her? If she could really refine it, the sun might rise from the west. The fifth elder basically did not believe it. Therefore, he missed the last chance to save himself. At this time, Su Luo has already satisfied everyone's appetites. They could see her cheeky smile, pinching the cover with her white jade finger and opening it instantly. The smell was so fragrant, a unique, full-bodied fragrance wafting out like a light smoke. The rich spiritual energy made people glow, and they couldn't wait to immerse themselves. There were even smart people who sat down on the spot and began to enter a meditative state. Grandmaster Marrow Cleansing Pill. It must be the Grandmaster Marrow Cleansing Pill. Oh my God! Oh my God! Su Luo actually refined a Grandmaster Marrow Cleansing Pill. She actually refined it. Chapter 2330, Shocking 7. This lady is so young. How can she be so amazing? This level of talent is simply awesome. Fifth Elder probably isn't even at this level, right? He might not even be able to refine a marrow cleansing pill in a situation where he has to use 3 furnaces simultaneously, right? That said, since Su Luo's refining skills are so amazing that she can even refine a Grandmaster Pill, why would she have leisurely gone and stolen the prescription for the elite marrow cleansing pill? Is she mentally ill? You're the one who is mentally ill. Whoever dares to say that she stole an elite marrow cleansing pill is the one who is truly mentally ill. That's right, that's right. This false accusation is simply too ridiculous. If she is able to refine Grandmaster marrow cleansing pills, would she still go and steal your single elite marrow cleansing pill? Ha ha ha. This is simply the funniest joke I've ever heard in my life. Lighten up, lighten up. Can't you see that the fifth elder's face is turning green? Soon, the atmosphere of the room went from being intense to being boiling over before going back to being silent again. At this moment, a figure suddenly rushed inside and stood in front of the medicinal cauldron. It was Sixth Elder. The Sixth Elder looked at the medicinal cauldron and then at Su Luo extremely excitedly. "It's you. It's you." Su Luo was immediately stunned. What did he mean by "it's you"? It's you. Did she know this old man who was clearly not quite right in the head? "Sixth Elder, why are you here?" Fifth Elder asked when he saw Sixth Elder, who was almost in tears with excitement. The Sixth Elder had arrived just in time. If he hadn't appeared, Fifth Elder would be the one being besieged now. However, Sixth Elder shook off Fifth Elder's hand and walked quickly over to Su Luo. His chest was heaving violently, while his eyes flashed with excitement. Su Luo was dumbfounded by this gaze of his. "Sixth Elder, what are you?" The Sixth Elder couldn't hide his excitement and said loudly to Su Luo, "A few days ago, were you refining in refining room number 3 on the ground floor of the pill refining tower? You refined a Grandmaster Spirit Absorption Pill?" Su Luo thought about it. She had indeed competed with Li Luoming a few days ago and produced a Grandmaster Spirit Absorption Pill. Moreover, she had even auctioned it off at a high price. Su Luo nodded. Sixth Elder excitedly grabbed Su Luo and pulled her away. "Good girl. How great. I've finally found you. Come. I have a problem. Let's discuss it." Sixth Elder looked like a medicine-obsessed idiot who did not understand the world. He was the kind of fanatic who was only interested in making medicine. That's why he gave no regard to the situation and pulled Su Luo away to discuss pharmacology. Otherwise, Su Luo would have thought that he was here to help Fifth Elder. At this time, Fifth Elder's brows furrowed deeply. Sixth Elder, do you know her? The Sixth Elder shook his head and then nodded. Then, when he saw that Fifth Elder was puzzled, he patted the latter on the shoulder. Fifth Elder, didn't I tell you before that I ran into a Grandmaster apothecary? It's this young lady. I remember the smell of the pills she made. It's her, all right. Fifth Elder's figure shook, seemingly on the verge of collapse. Fifth Elder, what's wrong? Feeling slightly anxious, Sixth Elder held up Fifth Elder with one arm. Fifth Elder pulled Sixth Elder's sleeve and gritted his teeth while saying, "Why didn't you say so earlier?" If he had known this earlier, how could he have possibly used such a lowly tactic to slander Su Luo and treat her as a joke? There was no way he would have made a promise in public to eat the medicinal cauldron. Chapter 23:31. Shocking 8. When Sixth Elder saw the veins on Fifth Elder's forehead pop out, he became even more puzzled. At that time, I also didn't know that it was this girl who had refined the Grandmaster pills. Fifth Elder really wanted to cry right now. Su Luo, who had absolutely no intention to go easy on Fifth Elder this time, was beaming like a sly little fox. Fifth Elder. Su Luo's smiling eyes were curved like crescents as she pointed at the medicinal cauldron that was as tall as a person. She didn't say anything, but the meaning of her gesture was very obvious. Fifth Elder. Just now, he even stated in a powerful and resonating voice that if Su Luo was able to refine a Grandmaster pill, he would eat that medicinal cauldron. Karmasure came really quick. A thin layer of sweat appeared on the Fifth Elder's forehead. It was a hot day, yet he felt cold sweat flow down steadily. Su Luo folded her arms across her chest and just stared straight at him. The unrestrained and humorless smile on her face made Fifth Elder's heart shiver. What should I do? Fifth Elder had never been so helpless before in his life. A smile flashed across the Eighth Elder's eyes. Being able to see the Fifth Elder so defeated made it easier for the Eighth Elder to accept sacrificing himself for Su Luo. The Fifth Elder was never going to eat the medicinal cauldron. Yet if he were to dust off his sleeves and leave now, what credibility would he have left in the future? Suddenly, Fifth Elder's eyes lit up as he quickly came up with a solution. With a wave of his hand, a huge and vicious netherworld white tiger suddenly appeared and instantly pounced towards the medicinal cauldron. Crack, crack. Within a few moments, the medicinal cauldron was chewed to bits and pieces. Everyone knew that this netherworld white tiger was Fifth Elder's spirit pet and mount, which he cherished usually very much. When the creature was almost done chewing up the medicinal cauldron, Fifth Elder gloomily climbed onto the netherworld white tiger and swiftly made an exit. Looking at Fifth Elder's pitiful appearance, Su Luo placed her hands on her hips and burst out laughing. She knew that her reputation would be established after this battle, and the entire genius training camp would know that she, Su Luo, was a Grandmaster apothecary. Additionally, Fifth Elder would not dare to scheme something in order to obtain her 9 yin and 9 yang falling cloud flower again. Su Luo was very pleased about this. However, there was a person who was currently so angry that she threw down her cup. This person was Su Luo's nemesis, Fairy Wu Yu. Li Luoming's territory was the pill refining tower. So how could he be so familiar with the scheming method? This was naturally thanks to Fairy Wu Yu. Even Lin Yi, who betrayed Su Luo, was planted by Fairy Wu Yu. Fairy Wu Yu was naturally happy to borrow Fifth Elder's hands to eliminate Su Luo, so she had been busy all day trying to make that happen. However, the result now was instead of being framed, Su Luo became famous. Not only did Fifth Elder fail to take advantage of the situation, he even suffered a great loss. Under these circumstances, how could Fairy Wu Yu be happy? She smashed not just the cup, but also everything that was smashable in the room. Su Luo, We simply cannot exist together. Fairy Wu Yu roared loudly with rage. Then what about Su Luo at this time? She had already been pulled away by the sixth elder. Despite being an elder, the sixth elder did not have the slightest attitude of an elder. In his eyes, there seemed to be no distinction between the superior and subordinate positions. He was the only one among all the elders who spoke to Su Luo as an equal. In terms of strength, Su Luo may be a bit weaker than the sixth elder. After all, experience and age played a part in that. Yet in terms of pharmacology knowledge, the sixth elder was not a match for Su Luo. After all, Su Luo had previously memorized Master Rong Yun's entire collection of books. During that 1 year, she spent almost all of her time learning the books by heart, so her theoretical knowledge was very solid. Furthermore, Su Luo had stayed with Master Rong Yun's side and received his personal guidance. So, she was superior to sixth elder when it came to pharmacology, be it in her scope of knowledge, experience, or pill refining technique. Chapter 2332 Fury 1. Su Luo did not leave on the spot. It wasn't that she didn't want to, but that she couldn't. Because the sixth elder had suddenly appeared like a complete fanatic, chasing after Su Luo and endlessly chattering to her about the skills for refining the Grandmaster Marrow Cleansing Pill. The forward momentum of Su Luo's footsteps stopped. She turned around, looked straight at the sixth elder, and shook her head. I don't want to talk about it. Why don't you want to talk about it? The sixth elder wore a puzzled expression. Not in a good mood. Why aren't you in a good mood? The sixth elder suffered from 100,000 whys syndrome. Because the person who slandered me was not punished. Su Luo felt that it was better to speak frankly with a simple-minded medicine nerd like the sixth elder. So that was why. The sixth elder's eyes were darkened, and he stomped his way to Li Luoming, his face full of fierceness. The fifth elder had already departed the scene earlier. However, Li Luoming, who had framed Su Luo, and those few false witnesses were still there. The sixth elder asked Su Luo, "What do you want to do to them?" Su Luo smiled and looked towards Li Luoming, the depths of her eyes filled with a sly, fox-like cunningness. She hooked the corners of her lips up. If they can be made to spend a few days living worse than death, then nothing could get better than that. For them as pill refiners, this was not actually a difficult thing to do. The sixth elder nodded his head. Then, he took out a black bottle from within his robes and poured out 6 light, greenish pills into his palm. The pills were as large as a longan, as green and eerie as the eyes of a lone wolf in the darkness, and had a rather foul smell. All of these discouraged people from using it. Su Luo even subconsciously pinched her nose and took a step backwards. The sixth elder moved very quickly, picking up one person, forcing his mouth open, throwing one of the pills in, and then pushing it towards his chest area. The pill instantly melted into the other party's dantian. They couldn't spit it out even if they wanted to. The sixth elder rewarded each of these people, including Aunt Lin and the housekeeper, with a turquoise-colored pill. Aunt Lin looked at Su Luo pitifully, tears silently flowing down her eyes. However, Su Luo looked back at her with a faint smile, her eyebrows still without movement. Was this to win sympathy? What a pity! It was too late for this. No matter what their reason was, she would never tolerate people who betrayed her. Because the betrayal of a friend was much more despicable compared to being framed by an enemy. After being forced to swallow the turquoise-colored pill by the sixth elder, the few people there began to subconsciously try to spit it out. But by this time, the pill had already been incorporated into their bones and blood, so what was the use of trying to spit it out? Ah! So itchy. So itchy. The first person collapsed. The second person also collapsed. Soon enough, all these people who had harmed Su Luo collapsed to the ground. They kept scratching at themselves, rolling their bodies around on the ground in pain, hitting their heads on the ground, wanting nothing more than to just die immediately. The sixth elder proudly showed off to Su Luo the enhanced version of the green pill. The effect of this pill can last for 3 months. That kind of itching where every second was tormenting and was to last for 3 months? The few people rolling around on the ground were instantly filled with despair, wanting nothing more than to die right then and there. Su Luo smiled at the sixth elder. This kind of result she expressed that she could accept. If she hadn't happened to refine the Grandmaster marrow-cleansing pill, the pitiful person being framed and tormented right now would be herself, Su Luo. Properly enjoy these 3 months. Whether you live or die would all depend on your own destinies. Su Luo indifferently swept a glance over them and then left. In other words, if they could hold out for those 3 months, then Su Luo's feud with them would be written off, and today's matter would come to a close. If they couldn't endure it, then they could only die in silence. Chapter 23:33 Fury 2. The crowd of onlookers silently watched Su Luo leave, their eyes filled with deep, fearful jealousy. For such a little girl to have this much strength, to have such methods and means, and to have such ruthlessness, it'd be best if they tried not to offend her in the future. Otherwise, they might meet a fate similar to Li Luoming's. This day full of liveliness had finally passed by. Although the crowd had already dispersed, the shock that everyone was left with today made a lasting impression in their hearts, forever leaving an indelible mark in their lives. At the start, they had held firm confidence in the fifth elder and firm support of Li Luoming. But who would have thought that Su Luo would reverse everything at the final crucial moment? And furthermore, this change was done so gorgeously and beautifully, simultaneously refining in 3 different medicinal cauldrons, elite pills, master pills, grandmaster pills, and they actually all came out successful. And furthermore, she was still so young. This one deeply struck the people present who considered themselves to be genius apothecaries. This new perspective that was given to them created an unprecedented wave of shock. The entire pill refining tower, after their initial fervor, quickly fell into dead silence. All because of Su Luo, the supreme pill refining genius. Ever since then, as a result of this shock and stimulation, they fell into a pill refining frenzy. The abilities of the entire pill refining tower would then rise by an entire level. But of course, this was for later on. Su Luo did not actually walk in, but was instead invited by the sixth elder to go to his laboratory. The sixth elder was obsessed with pill refining, so he didn't feel that there was anything wrong with asking a little girl for advice. However, his assistant saw this scene when bringing in the tea, and the surprise in her eyes could not be concealed. Heavens! The sixth elder had the strongest pill refining abilities in the entire pill refining tower, and even the fifth elder could not compare to him. Yet now he was actually asking for advice from a little girl? Assistant Lin Na thought her eyes were seeing things wrong. She rubbed her eyes, then rubbed her eyes again. But what she then saw in front of her was still the exact same scene. The sixth elder piously sat in the lower seat, taking out his newly researched pill to show, analyze, and ask for advice from the little girl. That pretty and excessive little girl sat in the top seat, leisurely sipping tea and occasionally saying a word or two. After hearing her words, the sixth elder was at first confused. Then his eyes lit up, and after this he felt ecstatic and shocked. Lin Na was basically dumbfounded upon seeing this. Were this little girl's words really so accurate? Was her knowledge really so extensive? To the extent that even a medicine fanatic like the sixth elder would go to her for advice. Lin Na brought out the tea, with tendrils of light smoke curling from it, and she listened to the little girl's words from the side. For Grandmaster pills, the most important thing is not the technique, but the potential for your green pill to have cracks if, as the little girl spoke, the sixth elder took out his notebook, watching her as he carefully recorded her words. The sixth elder that other people respectfully curried favor with now looked like an extremely diligent elementary school student, and even wrote down every single word that Su Luo said. Because the scene in front of her was truly too shocking, Lin Na stood there like a statue, not knowing at all how to react to it. After Su Luo finished speaking, she stood up and left the sixth elder with a final message. I have things to do, and will leave first. Regarding the Grandmaster marrow cleansing pill, let's discuss it later when we're free. After saying this, Su Luo patted her too, intending to leave. But how could the sixth elder let her go? The sixth elder hurriedly said, Don't do it later. This old man is very free now. But I'm not free. Su Luo shrugged her shoulders. Chapter 23:34. Fury 3. For the sixth elder, who was obsessed with medicine, anything other than refining medicine was tedious. Thus, he hated dealing with those matters and thought that they were troublesome. Aside from refining medicine, he wasn't concerned with anything else, and even gave up the vice-head position of the pill refining tower, just so he could focus solely on researching and refining medicine. Su Luo laughed and declined with a wave of her hand. I'm going into Purgatory City to visit my friends. How could I trouble others for such a task? Su Luo had the green communication amulet for some time now, but as she had been busy all this while, she hadn't had time to send out a message via the green communication amulet. Now, she really wanted to take a trip to Purgatory City to see how Bei Chening and Ziyin were doing. Going into the city? What a coincidence. I also want to visit a friend. Our routes just happen to match. Go, go, go. Let's go quickly together. The sixth elder was so excited. He was like a little fan of Su Luo. This trip to the city would take at least 6 or 7 days on foot, but if they rode the golden airship, the traveling time could be reduced to 2 or 3 days. The sixth elder felt that during these 2 or 3 days, he could pester Su Luo with many questions again, and so he was very happy. Su Luo really couldn't find any way to shake off the sixth elder, who was like a piece of sticky sesame candy. Thus, she reluctantly had to grit her teeth to agree with him. Back then, when Su Luo left her master and went down from the mountain, her master had stuffed a whole bookshelf of books into her space, which contained books from Master Apothecary to Grandmaster Apothecary. These books were all specially tailored and personally written for her by Grandmaster Rongyun. Afterwards, Su Luo could only improve this fast and pill refining by relying on these books and notes. Thus, that was why when sixth elder consulted Su Luo, she was able to give detailed answers that flew as smoothly and endlessly as running water. The sixth elder originally only wanted to probe at Su Luo, but after hearing a few of Su Luo's explanations, he basically just wanted to become her disciple. Su Luo? No. But why? The sixth elder expressed his dissatisfaction. Su Luo silently shook her head. Taking the eighth elder as a disciple was already shocking enough. If the sixth elder also became her disciple, this would be too abnormal. And why do you want to become my disciple? Su Luo's expression had finally recovered from the shock. Because among the people I have met before, only you are better than me. The sixth elder answered confidently. We will discuss the matter of becoming my disciple next time. Su Luo waved her hand and didn't accept nor deny him. This was unlike the matter with the eighth elder, who could secretly support her from the dark. This matter of becoming her disciple would really result in an uproar throughout the genius training camp, which would only cause more troublesome issues that would need to be followed closely. So, Su Luo could only delay this matter. Sixth elder did not have many talents, but his being obsessed with medicine was his greatest strength out of the few talents that he had. These few days, the sixth elder was constantly running circles around Su Luo, as if he had basically become Su Luo's little tail and an extremely obsessed fan. These all made Su Luo feel both proud and dejected. On the third day, the sixth elder's golden airship finally reached Purgatory City. After such a long time, Su Luo finally stepped onto the familiar ground again. At the moment she landed on the ground and looked around at her surroundings, Su Luo felt an indescribable feeling in her heart. It hadn't even been half a year, but for Su Luo, it felt like an entire era had passed. Back when she first came to Purgatory City, she was a mere commander rank, and at that time, any random subordinate that the third elder sent would have been able to beat her up. But now, the eighth elder had become her underling, the sixth elder was begging to become her disciple, and the current Su Luo had long raised her eyebrows and won. Chapter 23:35. Fury 4. Besides her, the greatly revered sixth elder was, in contrast, following her with every single step. To the sixth elder, the most important thing right now was begging for Su Luo to accept him as a disciple, All other matters were put aside. Right now, Su Luo was strolling through Tabawan. This street had left a deep impression on Su Luo. Because initially, when Su Luo had just advanced to a master apothecary, she had brought that batch of pills to Taba Street to sell, which became an instant success. Recalling these past events, Su Luo's eyes held a gentle joy, and the corners of her mouth rose slightly, gently smiling. Behind her, the sixth elder and Big Sister Wei followed closely. Big Sister Wei's vigilant gaze swept over anyone near Su Luo. If anyone dared to do harm to Su Luo, a beating from the giant club would await them. Su Luo was strolling along. Suddenly, she noticed that the atmosphere in Taba Street was slightly off. Su Luo keenly heard the sounds of pursuit coming from ahead. Stop her! Anyone who stops her will be handsomely rewarded by the Bright Moon Hall. Anyone who dares help her escape will be punished for treason. If you let her escape, and the judgment of the third elder falls upon you, all you rubbernecking bystanders will be guilty. Every single one of you. These shouting noises could be heard constantly. The third elder? Once Su Luo heard that title, her mind was jolted. Su Luo remembered that the third elder used to be her greatest nemesis, though now her enemy was changed to the third elder's most prideful disciple, Fairy Wu Yu. Any commotion involving the third elder was worth seeing, and Su Luo naturally wanted to have a hand in it. So, she said to the foolish senior sister and the sixth elder, "Quick, we'll also go take a look." If she could, she would also help the escapee on the run out, because the enemy of my enemy was my friend after all. Right now, there was still some distance between Su Luo and the person being chased in front, so all she could see was a small black that coming closer and closer towards her. And behind this small black, there were a troop of fiends that were probably the third elder's lackeys. That small black that was in an extremely tight spot, staggering as it ran with difficulty, while also being blocked by the crowd. Because the Bright Moon Hall had said, if the bystander stood by passively and let the criminal escape, the third elder's judgment would come upon them, and they would all be guilty. At this moment, a member of the crowd purposely tripped the escaping figure, and they pitifully fell to the ground, unable to get up for a long time. Right now, the Bright Moon Hall's men had fiercely caught up, and the one in front raised their leg, immediately kicking the escapee high into the air. Su Luo had still been just watching the commotion, but once she saw the figure of the person who was sent flying, her entire body froze. An unknown fury was instantly set ablaze in her chest. In the next instant, Su Luo's figure moved, flying high into the air, skillfully receiving that girl in her chest with both arms. Ziyan! It was actually Ziyan! At this moment, Su Luo was more furious. Right now, it was like her whole body burned with raging flames, like countless gushes of magma were surging up and out from the ground. The surrounding temperature seemed like it had instantly dropped by 10 degrees, and many people looked at Su Luo while their hair stood on end, then backed away step by step. Because right now, Su Luo was emitting an exceptional and ferocious killing intent. Chapter 23, 36 Fury 6. It was as if with a raise of her hand, she could cause an avalanche, rend the earth, and reverse the flow of rivers. Who are you? You dare to interfere in the affairs of the Bright Moon Hall? Tired of living? Are you? Quickly hand that person over. The leader was relying on the fact that he had more people on his side, and fiercely faced Su Luo. Meanwhile, Su Luo was checking the condition of Ziyan's wounds. But the more she checked, the more Su Luo had the urge to kill. Ziyan's wounds were very serious. Injuries from both blade and blunt attacks were all over her body. She was suffering from severe dehydration, her stamina pushed beyond its limits. And not only that, but her internal injuries were also extremely grave. 3 of her ribs were broken, one of which was piercing her heart. Most of her organs were ruptured and bleeding, and her clogged meridians were also in a grave situation. Su Luo took out a pill, quickly feeding it into Ziyan's mouth, relieving her condition. She knew that the most important thing now was to treat the broken ribs and ruptured organs. Otherwise, a moment of carelessness could lead to Ziyan's death. At this moment, the Bright Moon Hall's men were still rattling on, encircling Su Luo's group one by one. They clamored one after another. If you don't want to die, hurry up and hand her over. To think you would dare make an enemy of the Bright Moon Hall? You don't want to live anymore? Brothers, forward! The corners of Su Luo's mouth pulled into a strange sneer, and she deliberately instructed Big Sister Wei, emphasizing every word. I'll leave this to you for practice. Leave them on their last breath. Got it? Big Sister Wei's skills suited the situation well, so when she heard this order from Su Luo, she was extremely excited. Lifting her giant club, she charged forward like she was flying. Bang, bang, bang. The Genius Training Camp, the top 100 people in the Dragon List, of course they were out of the ordinary. Their true strength wasn't something those from the inner city could compare to. Once Big Sister Wei had taken action, who could compete with her when mowing down all the enemies? No one could escape the reach of her giant club. One could only see Big Sister Wei rush about the whole place at hyperspeed. Everyone could only see a trail of afterimages. It was to the point where her actual body had long since left where one saw it. No one Big Sister Wei targeted was able to escape. Bang, 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 Big Sister Wei seemed like she was playing with mice, having fun in an excited and joyful way. One could see her leap high into the air, smashing foreheads with a single, precise blow from her club. Those who were struck had their eyes swirling like mosquito coils and fell limply to the ground. Like Su Luo said, they had been smashed to their last remaining breath. Once the three remaining people saw how bad things were, they looked at each other, and then they split up and ran away in different directions. But Big Sister Wei just sneered. She leapt, soaring over, quickly arriving in front of those people. With a swing from Big Sister Wei's club, the lackey's body, out of control, could only fly backwards, landing on the ground with a bang, not too far from Su Luo. Then, the figure of Big Sister Wei flashed again, and she extended her arms, seizing the back of the second person's clothes and flinging him backward in one motion. This lackey cried out in fright as he was midair, and very soon his head hit the ground, his forehead smashing against it, fresh blood wildly spurting out. As for the third one, with the time the other two had bought, the third one had run further. He was already more than one away. Umph! Big Sister Wei snorted, and smashed with a far-reaching swing. Crack! Soon after, a sad, tragic cry resounded. One could only see Big Sister Wei's club smashed onto the third person's lower legs, such that his lower legs were turned into bone fragments and minced meat. Chapter 2337 Fury 6. As Big Sister Wei did that, a dark trail of blood was left on the ground along with bits of flesh that had fallen off the opponent's body. When passers-by saw this scene, they all backed away one by one with a reverent expression in their eyes. The sight of this cruel scene gave them goosebumps. However, Big Sister Wei thought nothing of it and very naturally continued dragging the person away. For the approximately 31 miles that she walked, the dark trail of blood was so straight that it was as if someone had used a ruler to measure the distance. By the time they reached Su Luo, the opposing party's kneecap had already been replaced with an empty space, and his lower leg was in the same state as if it had been sawed off, totally gone. At this time, Su Luo had already more or less finished treating Ziyin. She placed the semi-unconscious Ziyin in the care of Big Sister Wei's arms before slowly standing up and turning around. Without saying a word, she looked right at the people with weak auras. You people, just who exactly are you? Su Luo sneered. We're members of Bright Moon Hall. Everyone knows that behind Bright Moon Hall, there is the third elder. You dared to mess with the third elder's people. You're doomed. These 10 or so people still had some breath left in them, and they used it to threaten Su Luo at this moment. However, Su Luo was cold and detached like the underworld's Azura. Her gaze was icy like that of thousand-year-old snow, and just one glance would send a chill seeping down to one's bones. Why are you trying to kill her? Su Luo asked with clenched fists. At present, there was still fear lingering in her heart. If she hadn't rushed over just in time, what would have happened to Ziyin? Su Luo was very certain that Ziyin would have died really tragically. Ziyin had risked her life for Su Luo several times in the past. In particular, there was that time in the Secret Dragon territory when Ziyin defended the mirror door with Beichening and exhausted her spiritual strength right down to the bone. Every time Su Luo thought of that, her heart ached with guilt. Now this good friend of hers was in such a poor state from being chased and attacked. How could Su Luo not get furious? Confronted with Su Luo's question, the members of Bright Moon Hall looked at each other in dismay. Yet not one of them spoke up. Not talking? Su Luo sneered as she approached them slowly, step by step. That woman deserves to die. She has no sense of shame. She actually dared to seduce our young masterling first, and then fooled around with another man. She's simply shameless. The leader of the group from Bright Moon Hall acted upon the indignant righteousness filling his chest. When Su Luo heard this, the fury that she had suppressed with great difficulty gushed back up again. She didn't bother offering up a defense. Su Luo just used a cold gaze to look at the opposing party, sending their minds into a panic. All of you deserve to die. Su Luo pronounced their death sentence with 6 words. The group's leader didn't believe her and sneered. We're Bright Moon. Before he could finish saying his sex name, a distinctly icy cold blade suddenly appeared in Su Luo's hands. She raised it with both hands and struck down from above. Crack! Ah! Panicked shrieks rang throughout the group of people, and those at the rear were now moving backward continuously. This caused a huge area in front of Su Luo to become empty. It was just Su Luo's one sword slicing down, so why did it trigger such a reaction? The explanation for this started with the position of Su Luo's sword. She wasn't slicing horizontally or diagonally, but straight down. After Su Luo struck straight down with her sword, the group's leader, who had been half kneeling, was now completely split from head to toe into 2 halves. One half fell to the left, and the other to the right. His eyes were opened really wide on his split face. As Su Luo's killing move struck too suddenly, the man was hacked into 2 before he could even respond. Chapter 2338. Fury 7. That was the 3rd Elder's Bright Moon Hall? This strike of Su Luo's could even be considered as a warning one. It immediately shocked to a halt all those people who had just been saying a lot of pointless and unfavorable words. They were all stunned. She actually killed for real, right, after saying she'd kill them? They were members of Bright Moon Hall. Bright Moon Hall? With her bloody Ching-Ying sword in hand, Su Luo approached them slowly, step by step. The members of Bright Moon Hall had pale complexions and sweat rolling down their faces. Their mouths blurted out continuously. Are you not afraid of the 3rd Elder? If you dare kill us, Bright Moon Hall definitely won't let you off. Just wait to suffer the 3rd Elder's wrath. Su Luo's gaze was swift and fierce like that of hawks and falcons. When she heard those words, the corners of her lips curved up in a condescendingly cold and cruel sneer. Bright Moon Hall. The ones I'm going to kill are precisely you, the members of Bright Moon Hall. Why you? Don't you come over? Whoosh! Su Luo raised her hand, and her sword descended, reaping a person's head. Hey! Didn't you want to know the truth? I'll tell you Whoosh! Su Luo nimbly sliced horizontally across, and that person's head became a separate part of his body. Don't you come over? Don't come over. Whoosh! The heads continued getting reaped. Currently, Su Luo was like a demon from the underworld. With every 10 steps, she killed 1 person, and within 100, she had almost completely slaughtered the group of Bright Moon Hall's lackeys. She wasn't going to leave a single one of them alive. Su Luo was like a Jura who had been dyed red with blood. Drops of blood splashed on her wide snow-white sleeves and flowy fairy-like dress, smudging to form what looked like scarlet plum blossoms in bloom. By the time Ziyin opened her eyes, Su Luo had already killed the entire group of people. Luo! Upon seeing Su Luo, Ziyin's eyes reddened uncontrollably, and her voice choked with emotion. Su Luo's stiff figure shook slightly. With a relaxed smile on her face, she turned around and smiled at Ziyin. How have you been taking care of yourself? We haven't met for just a few months, and you've already gotten yourself into such a bad state? Ziyan's eyes were tearing up, but there was a smile in those teary eyes. She grabbed hold of Su Luo tightly. Luo, you came at just the right time. If you had been even just a bit later, you wouldn't have been able to see me again in this life. What nonsense are you saying? My blood can revive the flesh and bone of the dead. Even if you died, I would snatch you back from the hands of the king of hell. You wouldn't be left for dead, even if you died. Are you regretting it now? Su Luo pretended to be relaxed. Ziyan let out a pffttt, and a smile spread across her face. It's so good to have Su Luo around. Ziyan originally felt fretful and desperate, but once she saw Su Luo, she saw hope. Suddenly, Ziyan's state of mind changed, and she pulled Su Luo's hand with a tight and heavy grip. Su Luo said pensively, "What about Beichen? Has something happened to him?" A jolt ran through Ziyan's mind, and she turned away with a desolate expression. Su Luo knew what Ziyan was worried about, and said to her seriously, "Look here. I was the one who killed this whole group of people before you. I'm already a 2-star saint rank now, and much more powerful than you think. So, tell me quickly, what has happened exactly? And who is that young masterling?" Ziyan was worried that Su Luo wouldn't be strong enough and that she would be dragging Su Luo into trouble, so she didn't dare tell Su Luo about it. Knowing this, Su Luo said those words to put Ziyan at ease. T2-star saint rank? Ziyan stared at Su Luo foolishly with clear black eyes, almost forgetting to reply. She remembered that when she first parted from Su Luo, it hadn't been long since Su Luo ascended to the commander rank. Yet Su Luo had already become a 2-star saint rank so quickly? How was that possible? Chapter 2339, Revenge 1. Ziyan looked at the clearly not too bright big sister Wei and was deeply shocked. With the strength of a 3-star saint rank, she still became Luo's bodyguard? Ziyan looked at big sister Wei, who slapped her chest, proud of herself for being able to be Su Luo's bodyguard. And this person is the Purgatory City's 6th elder, and he's my friend. Su Luo nodded at the 6th elder. The 6th elder, who had been keeping a straight face, put on a strict appearance with his eyes wide open and a puff from his nose. Seeing Su Luo introduced him, and nodding at Ziyan, sort of finished with the greetings, but he still solemnly and stiffly corrected Su Luo. "Not friend, you're my future master." If we said that Su Luo was a 2-star saint rank, Big Sister Wei's 3-star saint rank would not be enough to shock Ziyan. That 6th elder, like a cannonball flying into water, sent waves of shock into Ziyan's heart. In fact, who wouldn't be shocked after hearing this news? The dignified 6th elder of Purgatory City, originally far above the masses, the subject of reverence and worship by myriads of peoples, now somehow said that Su Luo would be his future master? What the hell? Ziyan felt like she was definitely dreaming. She rubbed her eyes and rubbed them again, noticing that the people in front of her were still there. Then weakly asked Su Luo, "Am I dying of illness and hallucinating things?" Su Luo snorted with laughter. "Dying what? Could you die with me around?" "That's true." Ziyan giggled, then she thought of Beichening, and a worried look appeared in her eyes. Luo, quickly go save Beichens. Where is he?" Su Luo had a feeling that things weren't going to be good. Tianyi Duel Arena. Ziyan was extremely nervous. "Because of me, Beichen is dueling with Ling Xianran." But how could Beichen beat Ling Xianran? "We'll talk about it on the go." Su Luo let Big Sister Wei carry Ziyan on her back, and the group hurried to the Tianyi Duel Arena that Ziyan spoke of. Tianyi Duel Arena in the inner city was similar to the life and death battle stage, specially made for people to battle. On the way, Ziyan briefly caught Su Luo up to speed on the things that had happened. Of course, everything said about the Bright Moon Hall's men that were killed by Su Luo was all ironic. After Su Luo left, Ziyan and Beichen entered the elite training camp, preparing for the genius training camp that would be happening soon. Once, they went to the magical beast zone, where their teammates suffered unusual deaths. Someone then made a report, saying that Beichen and Ziyin teamed up to kill them, with the aim of stealing their achievements. That person's report was critical, and witness testimonies and physical evidence weren't in favor of Ziyin and Beichen. They were originally going to be executed, but the law enforcer was under the Great Elder, who personally appeared and protected Ziyin and Beichening. But the elite training camp incident couldn't be delayed any longer. Thus, Ziyin and Beichening returned to the inner city and could only cultivate by themselves. But it was very clear that the other party wouldn't let them go easily. Ling Xianran then appeared at this time. His first objective was Ziyin, but Ziyin didn't want to make a ruckus and fought him, but their tussle was seen by others, so news got out. The matter of Ziyin and Ling Xianran spread like wildfire, and Beichening went to find Ling Xianran in private, but was severely beaten. Chapter 2340 Revenge 2 Ling Xianran is the third elder's person? Su Luo's face looked like a clouded sky, a cloud of gloom. When dark clouds covered the sky, a storm would rise. Yes, Ling Xianran is the nephew of the third elder. He had always listened to the third elder. Ziyin bit her lower lip, eyes full of hatred. It's not your fault, it's mine. Su Luo felt the guilt overtaking her heart. The person who the third elder wanted is me. You guys were roped into this because of me. No. Ziyin shook her head. If it weren't for my identity, the third elder would have not. Speaking of Ziyan's identity, Su Luo smiled bitterly. She had asked Senior Brother Luo about this matter before. Senior Brother Luo told her that it wasn't that Ziyan's status as a holy maiden was low, but that she was still in a probationary period and she wasn't a true holy maiden yet. Only once she entered the genius training camp, entered the dragon list, and became an elder, only at that time could she really take the purgatory city under her command. In short, identity and strength had to be equated. Ziyin was currently low in strength, so her identity was useless. What about Ling Xianran? Let me meet him. Su Luo sneered and led a group of people to the Tianyi Duel Arena. At this time, the Tianyi Duel Arena was very lively. The usual mysterious young Master Ling, whose head could be seen but never is one, was actually engaged in a battle today with a young man of the commander rank. If Fairy Wuyu was the third elder's proudest disciple, then young Master Ling was the favorite junior of the third elder. Ling Xianran was smart and clever. His cultivation was taught by the third elder, so he entered the genius training camp early. He was paranoid, protecting his shortcomings, regardless of right and wrong, for people that were taken under the wing of Ling Xianran. No matter whether they were in the right or the wrong, or if they dared to cause any trouble, he would appear to stand up for them with no hesitation. And so far, the only person he, Ling Xianran, had taken under his wing was Fairy Wuyu. Fairy Wuyu was raised from Ling Xuanran's protection. Although she was now stronger than Ling Xianran, no one could compare in his care for her. Ling Xianran came here to deal with Beichening and Ziyin because he had heard something from the third elder. The third elder said that Fairy Wuyu was bullied in the upstream mountain, and the person who had done it was Su Luo. The topic was biased, and he was biased towards Su Luo's friends, so Ling Xianran planned to find Su Luo's friends to bully first, and then go to the upstream mountain to find Su Luo and settle things. Ling Xianran and Beichening had reached the final juncture. Boom! Ling Xianran slammed a heavy fist into Beichening's abdomen, smacking him far away. Beichening fell heavily on the battle platform, spurting out a mouthful of blood. You lose. Ling Xianran stood proudly, despising Beichening, and pronounced the result of the game with indifference. I didn't lose. Beichening wobbled as he struggled to stand up. He had barely stood up, and before he could steady himself, Ling Xianran rushed towards him, pinching his shoulder with one hand, keeping his figure in place, and making a fist with the other hand, slammed it towards his abdomen. His fist attacked the Beichening heavily. Once more, again, and again. Chapter 2341 Revenge 3. Bei Qinying's recent improvements were already very great. Nevertheless, he was after all from a foreign continent, so how could he compare to the native Ling Xianran? Moreover, the current Ling Xianran had already accumulated 50 years of actual cultivation time. If Bei Qinying were given 50 years, how could Ling Xianran even be his opponent? Unfortunately for Bei Qinying, there was indeed a gap in their cultivation times. At this moment, the spectators' eyes showed their unhappiness. They saw the blood on the ground grow from a few droplets at the start to a puddle that stained the ground red as it started spreading, branching into little streams of flowing blood like a blooming red spider lily one, appearing weirdly alluring. When Su Luo arrived, she coincidentally happened to see this exact scene. At this moment, Su Luo's eyes were bloodshot, and traces of scarlet blood could be seen spreading in the depths of her eyes. Su Luo did not have time to think any further. When she appeared again after teleporting, she was already behind Ling Xuanran's body. Ling Xianran instinctively felt danger after being strengthened by the 7 Stars Pearl. At that moment, the Chungying sword gave a burst of unprecedented power. Swoosh! After a sharp sound rang out, although Ling Xianran dodged quickly enough, the palm of his hand that was holding on to Bei Qinying was scratched viciously by Su Luo. If not because he dodged quickly, he would have ended up losing his whole hand. Ling Xianran released Bei Qinying. Bei Qinying's body lost its support and fell limply to the ground at once. Seeing the current sight of Bei Qinying, Su Luo's eyes turned red, and killing intent surged out like magma. Bei Qinying's whole face was covered with blood, and the lapel in front of his chest looked like it was soaked in a patch of scarlet red blood. His face was as pale as snow, and his breathing was weak, as though he would die at any moment. Remembering the once smug and optimistic youngster, and seeing his current barely breathing frame, Su Luo's heart felt as if it was being clutched by a giant hand, causing her unbearable discomfort. By this time, Ziyan had hurriedly stumbled over. "Don't worry, I'll save him." Su Luo's exclamation was loud and clear. One could only see a cold light flash by as the Chungying sword slashed down heavily on Su Luo's wrist, and blood seemed to gush out instantly. "Pry open his mouth," Su Luo instructed solemnly. Ziyan hurriedly pried open Bei Qinying's mouth, while Su Luo held her wrist up. Valuable scarlet blood, Ningpo Figwart's essence, started flowing. Su Luo's regenerative abilities were really just too strong, and the wound would automatically heal itself after just a short while. Thus, Su Luo repeatedly cut open the already healed wound over and over again. The spectators below the stage stared at this scene cross-eyed. They were not only shocked by Su Luo's wound's recovery speed, but even more so by Su Luo's cold expression, repeatedly cutting open one slice after another on the same wound. It finished healing and was then cut open again. Healed, then cut open again. How painful was that? But Su Luo's brows didn't move at all, as if the wrist she was cutting wasn't even her own. Already unable to recall how many times Su Luo had cut her own wrist already, she continued until the 6th elder's voice reached her. "Enough! He still isn't awake yet." Su Luo's voice had a cold and icy tone to it. "If this continues, even you will lose too much blood and die. Moreover, your blood's medicinal properties are too concentrated. If he can't absorb it, it's just poison that will end up harming him." The 6th elder pulled Su Luo away. Su Luo thought 6th elder's argument made quite some sense and thus stopped. However, Chapter 2342, Revenge 4. But this didn't mean that things were done here. "You guys go down first." Su Luo let Big Sister Wei bring Bei Qinying and Ziyan down. Those two had injuries all over their bodies, so it wouldn't be good for them to stay on the stage. Big Sister Wei turned around. She wanted to fight. "Good girl. Protect them first. I'll let you fight well later." Su Luo gently patted Big Sister Wei's shoulder. Big Sister Wei gave Ling Xianran a ferocious glare, glaring until Ling Xianran felt an inexplicable chill in his heart. Before he understood what happened, Big Sister Wei had already brought Ziyin and Beichening down, one in each hand. Seeing those people go down, Ling Xianran asked, "Who are you? You dare to interfere with my business?" Su Luo sneered as she looked at him. At this moment, the sixth elder walked out from behind Su Luo and coldly looked at Ling Xianran. "Then what about me? Can I interfere with your business?" Only at this moment did Ling Xianran realize the sixth elder had appeared. After taking a glance at him, he felt that this old man looked quite familiar, and after some thinking, Ling Xuanran's face immediately turned stiff. He realized this old man wasn't anyone else. It was precisely the sixth elder. The sixth elder had once taken care of the third elder's illness, and Ling Xianran saw him at that time. "How do you want to deal with him?" the sixth elder said to Su Luo. Without mishearing, although this sentence was used often during interrogations, but here, when the sixth elder said it, he really meant it literally word for word. The sixth elder couldn't wait to do more things for Su Luo so that he would be in better favor with her, and trade in that favor for the medicinal knowledge he wanted. However, Ling Xianran didn't hear that sentence. He said to the sixth elder then and there, "Old man, you came out from the upstream mountain? When Annie sees that, she'll definitely be very excited." Ling Xianran hadn't finished speaking before he was interrupted with a wave of the sixth elder's hand. "Shut your mouth. You're not qualified to speak." Ling Xianran. Su Luo looked at the sixth elder with a grin. "Can he really be dealt with however I like? Isn't he the third elder's favorite nephew?" The sixth elder stroked his beard proudly and said with a snort, "You don't need to care about that. You only need to say if it's the left hand or the right hand." "What if I want not just the left hand, but also the right?" Su Luo put both her hands behind her back, indifferent and standing up straight, looking at Ling Xianran with a deeply mocking light in her eyes. "You want both hands, HM." The sixth elder rubbed his goatee and pondered for a while. "Is it hard to do?" Su Luo taunted with a smirk. "Left hand? Right hand?" It was still far from enough to extinguish her flames of fury. The two people discussed Ling Xianran as if no one else was around, simply treating Ling Xianran like he was invisible, completely paying zero attention to him. Ling Xianran almost died from fuming in his heart. He stomped up to Su Luo, looking straight at her. "Who are you?" Su Luo half smiled. "Ling Xianran, you don't even know who I am, yet you still foolishly mess with my friend? You're Su Luo?" Ling Xuanran's eyes were bursting with intensity. "It's you who bullied Wuyo?" "I bullied Wuyo?" Su Luo looked at the moron in front of her, like he was a fool. How strong was Fairy Wuyo? Then, how strong was she? Furthermore, it was Fairy Wuyo who had been constantly provoking her from the start, and now it was somehow the other way round, being falsely accused of bullying Fairy Wuyo. "What a one!" Su Luo sneered. "That's right, I bullied her. What about it?" Chapter 2343, Revenge 5. When Ling Xianran heard that, he instantly flew into a rage. "Su Luo, I want to kill you." "Kill me?" "Sure," Su Luo said. Then, she looked at the sixth elder apologetically. "Sixth elder, you painstakingly saved his life, but he insists on forcing himself into a dead end. He's really letting down your kind intentions." Ling Xianran got so angry that he almost stomped with fury. This was because Su Luo was saying very clearly that he would not be able to defeat her, and that he was just courting death by fighting her. "Fight to death. I want to fight to death with you." Ling Xianran was so furious that a pulsing cyan vein popped up on his forehead. "Fight to death?" Ling Xianran, you really ought to think this through properly. In a fight to the death, you're responsible for your own life or death. Su Luo beamed as she looked at him. Only those who understood Su Luo knew that the brighter she smiled, the deeper she suppressed her anger. "You think you're going to defeat me?" It wasn't that Ling Xianran was conceited. He was 16th in the dragon list and weaker than Fairy Wuyu by a little bit, but he was actually a lot stronger than most people. Moreover, he had already heard all about Su Luo's situation early on. She had passed the assessment and entered the genius training camp just a few months ago. Taking everything into account, She must merely be at the level of those in distal End Mountain. Ling Xianran felt that he would be able to crush Su Luo to death with a single finger like crushing an ant to death. Su Luo laughed coldly. "Call your aunt over." Su Luo flung out her sleeves, and a snug red sandalwood chair appeared on the stage. Then she sat down leisurely and put both her legs up. The people below the stage were stunned by this sight. They had never seen anyone play out the meaning of being without restraint, confident, and at ease with such brilliance on a fighting stage. This was because the fighting stage usually gave them the impression of blood, brutality, and death. Ling Xianran arrogantly stuck up his chin. "No need." Su Luo smiled nonchalantly. "I'm doing this for your sake. I'm letting you see your aunt one last time before you die, yet you're not appreciating my kindness? You." Ling Xianran was practically about to be angered to death by Su Luo, as expected of the smart-mouthed wench. No wonder the innocent and kind-hearted fairy Wu Yu was bullied by her, Ling Xianran thought hatefully. Su Luo slowly raised her leg. "If you don't call your aunt over, we're unable to have this fight." Su Luo's gaze drifted over Ling Xuanran's face as lightly as a feather while her lips curved into a smirk. "If I beat you to death, your aunt will definitely try and kill me to get revenge. So what good will this do me? It would be best to invite her to sign an agreement regarding your life and death." Ling Xianran initially wanted to have a quick fight and end because he saw Su Luo as someone so weak that she wasn't much different from an ant. He couldn't understand why she insisted on wanting his aunt to come and sign an agreement. "My aunt is occupied with a multitude of state affairs. She has always never bothered with such small matters. She definitely won't come over." Ling Xianran understood the third elder very well. If you mention Su Luo to her, she will definitely come over. However, someone who understood the third elder even better was Su Luo. Sometimes, a person's enemy understood them better than those closest to them. Ling Xianran sneered as he gazed at Su Luo. Since she didn't believe him, he would let her find out personally just how imposing, beautiful, and noble the third elder was. Ling Xianran took out his communication amulet. Speaking softly, he told the third elder about what was happening here and mentioned Su Luo at the end. He had yet to even finish talking about the matter of the third elder coming over to sign the agreement. However, the third elder's expression already turned sinister the moment she heard the mention of Su Luo, and a vicious and ominous glint flashed across her eyes. "That wench!" Chapter 2344, Revenge 6. The third elder had already hung up the call, but Ling Xianran was still in a trance. Had he heard it wrongly? His aunt was truly coming over personally? Just because of this weak little wench before him? Ling Xianran looked at Su Luo suspiciously, but Su Luo merely showed him an indifferent back view. Meanwhile, the sixth elder was definitely standing on Su Luo's side. He furrowed his brows. "Why did you call that old temptress over? It's not like you can defeat her. Don't I have you for that?" Su Luo lowered her eyelids and raised the corners of her lips into a wicked smile. "Say, what do you think about letting her personally watch her nephew die? Isn't it very amusing?" The sixth elder. He finally realized that this petite-looking young girl had such a sinister trait hidden in her heart. Su Luo wasn't afraid that the third elder would get angry. Rather, she was afraid the third elder wouldn't be furious. Moreover, Su Luo was already planning to throw the furious third elder over to him to deal with. The sixth elder really wanted to ask, "Is it really good to do this?" However, the sixth elder also felt this was a particularly good thing. That's because Su Luo would owe him a huge favor after this. Nevertheless, the sixth elder's impression of Su Luo went up a notch again. Right from the beginning, she had already begun calculating and planning every step, every possible outcome, and even the countermeasures for the outcomes. Even in that kind of rage, Su Luo's mind was still able to operate with such accuracy. It was impossible not to admire her. Having arrived at this conclusion, the sixth elder finally felt certain regarding the reason why she's able to have such great apothecary technical ability despite her young age. It was because she had a good brain. Time spent waiting in anticipation always passed very quickly. Before long, the third elder arrived. They hadn't met for many days, but the third elder was still dressed in a splendid large red robe. Her skin was as fair as snow, and her lips red like that of raging flames. She was delicate, beautiful, and alluring, yet her aura was 100% that of a queen. The third elder descended lightly. Suddenly, silence filled the place. Everyone held their breath with rapt attention as they gazed adoringly at the third elder, who was surrounded by a splendid radiance. As the third elder landed lightly on the fighting stage, she neatened her clothes without shifting her gaze over to Su Luo. In fact, she completely ignored Su Luo's relaxed display. The third elder's gaze turned to the sixth elder. "Old Six, you were willing to come out? Weren't you staying in your laboratory?" The moment she appeared, the third elder behaved like she was very close with the sixth elder. However, this closeness showed that she considered the sixth elder as inferior to her. The sixth elder simply uttered this. Faced with the third elder's beguiling behavior, the sixth elder remained with a deadpan face. He was now a stiff old man with a solemn expression, unlike his amiable self when he spoke with Su Luo. Naturally, the third elder was already used to the sixth elder treating her coldly and followed up with a bright smile. "Oh, you should really take more walks outside and get some fresh air. This way, your thoughts will run more smoothly. Who knows, you might even get inspired. Although you're currently the best in Purgatory City, you can't protect." The sixth elder shot a cold glare at the third elder and immediately interrupted her. "I'm not the best." "Oh." The third elder's heart shook. "Don't tell me old Five. He's not the best." The sixth elder cut her off instantly. "Then who is it?" In her mind, the third elder went through the list of people she knew of, but she couldn't find anyone who could surpass the fifth and sixth elders. "Her?" The sixth elder pointed at Su Luo. The third elder waved her hand in total disbelief. "Old Six, don't mess around. This sort of thing isn't funny at all." Chapter 2345, Revenge 7. Thank you for your support. Su Luo knew how to refine medicine? Perhaps. Yet, if Su Luo's apothecary level surpassed that of the fifth and sixth elders, then the third elder wanted to say, if this were true, she'd rather eat a medicinal cauldron. However, someone had in fact already eaten a medicinal cauldron much earlier on. That matter with Su Luo had been too humiliating for the fifth elder, so he had ordered that no one spread this information outside. So aside from those in the pill refining tower, no one else knew about this matter. It was to the extent where the third elder hadn't even attached any significance to Su Luo. The sixth elder urged impatiently, "Didn't you want to have a fight to the death? Why are you still not fighting?" Once the fight was over, the sixth elder wanted to consult Su Luo about pharmacology. At this moment, Ling Xinran stepped out and said complacently to the third elder, "Aunt, this is an agreement for the fight to the death. Sign it." The third elder looked at the agreement that Ling Xinran held. This agreement hadn't been drafted by Ling Xinran. It was just a copy of a commonly used agreement. This was because people would often fight to the death at this fighting stage, so they'd already had a template prepared. The agreement consisted of a few simple lines explaining that the parties involved wouldn't blame anyone if they died, and that their friends and relatives couldn't use this as a pretext to seek revenge. Glancing over the agreement, the third elder then shot a ripple-filled gaze at Su Luo with a cold and gloomy smile in her eyes. The third elder was actually very confident in Ling Xuanran's abilities. She felt it was pretty much a given that he would be able to kill Su Luo and have energy to spare. Her pen moved like a roaming dragon, and with just a few strokes, she signed her name onto the line meant for the witness. There were 4 copies of this agreement, in total 1 each for the third elder, Ling Xinran, the sixth elder, and Su Luo. Every person involved had a copy, and once they verified that there were no mistakes, they each kept their copy of the agreement. "We can start now, right?" Ling Xinran had been waiting a long time to kill Su Luo, so much so that he had already thought of countless ways to harm her. With a wave of her sleeve, Su Luo kept away her most treasured red sandalwood chair. On the stage, the only ones remaining were Su Luo and Ling Xianran. Su Luo smiled nonchalantly. Ever since ascending to a 2-star saint rank, she hadn't had a chance to properly display her strength. Now, the opportunity for that had finally arrived. Wonderful. When Ling Xianran saw Su Luo smile like that, his eyes narrowed. Soon after, Ling Xianran took the initiative to attack. He swiftly moved his hands, preparing and condensing something. Very soon, a huge aureole condensed in front of his chest. After that, Ling Xianran yelled loudly, "Go!" Following this explosive yell, that aureole flew to the top of Su Luo's head and instantly blew up into tiny dust particles that shone with a cold light. These dust particles gushed wildly towards Su Luo like a tide, encircling her from all directions. Although the dust particles seemed unremarkable, there was a surprisingly great amount of them. If they were to make their way into Su Luo's body, she would likely explode and die on the spot. The corners of Su Luo's lips slowly curved up into a nonchalant smile. 4-star saint rank. So, it turned out that Ling Xianran was a 4-star saint rank? How amazing. However, so what? Could it be that he really believed these dust particles could harm her? Nothingness of space appear. There was a faint smile on Su Luo's face as her hands conjured a complex boundary barrier. It was as if she had put up a thick, transparent layer of protective membrane all around her body. There were no holes those shiny dust particles could not enter, but how could they pass through that protective membrane covering Su Luo's body? This was a battle between the dust particles and the protective membrane. Ling Xianran had never even imagined that Su Luo would be able to withstand this attack, and thus got a shock. He held her in higher regard now. Nevertheless, this wouldn't really be able to change anything. Chapter 2346. Certain Death 1. Thank you for your support. Ling Xianran sneered. The power added to the dust motes suddenly became stronger. The two parties originally maintained the balance of power. However, now the dust motes took the advantage. These dense dust motes instantly pierced towards the protective film. Su Luo smiled faintly. She made a repeated gesture, and the protective film seemed to get coated with a metallic sheen. Pfffff, the dust motes hit the metallic sheen, turned into powder, and scattered to the ground. The first round. Ling Xianran lost. Ling Xianran did not expect Su Luo to be that powerful. Wasn't she just a lowly 2-star saint rank? How could she actually withstand an attack at 50% of his strength? This made Ling Xianran look at Su Luo somewhat impressed. No wonder she dared to stand up for her friend. No wonder she dared to sign an agreement for a fight to the death. That was because she had her own skills to rely on. However, Ling Xianran smiled coldly. Su Luo, that was just a prelude. The real battle begins now. Ling Xianran grinned hideously. His face was full of malice. Su Luo sneered, but she said nothing. Ling Xianran then launched an even stronger attack, beating Su Luo back repeatedly. She was almost unable to withstand it. On the stands, the third elder sat calmly. Looking at the scene on the stage, she had a pleased smirk in her eyes, full of an unconcealed joy. Contrary to the third elder, the sixth elder's brows were tightly furrowed. Without blinking, he stared nervously at the stage, deeply worried that Su Luo might make a mistake. Old Sixth, what are you nervous about? The third elder laughed, relaxed and smug. The sixth elder ignored her and continued to stare at the stage. Old Sixth, no matter how highly you think of that girl, I, your older sister, must say a word here. The third elder's eyes erupted with a glint of light, the look of unprecedented solemnity. I must kill that girl. The sixth elder gave her a glance. Don't you dare. Ah! The third elder remembered the great elder's previous hint, and remembered the inseparable relationship between Su Luo and the city lord. A trace of wariness flashed through her heart. However, she sneered. She did not dare to do it herself. Otherwise, 100 of Su Luo would have died on the street long ago. She didn't dare. Nevertheless, there were people around to do it for her. Look, that girl signed the agreement herself. Whether she can escape death, it depends on God's will. Unfortunately, God was very busy. The sixth elder kept staring at the stage, tense and ready to make a move. The third elder laughed out loud. Old sixth, do you think I'm sitting here with you just a banner? A cold gaze flashed in the sixth elder's eyes. Even if he was slow in the ways of the world, he could still understand the meaning behind the third elder's words. If he made a move, the third elder would surely stop him. The sixth elder secretly told himself that this was bad. He couldn't help Su Luo. He could only pray for her to survive this battle. On the battle stage, there were glinting swords with flashing afterimages. It was hard at the moment to tell which side was winning. However, Su Luo obviously was at a disadvantage. Gravitational space, Chungying's sword, Yanhua dagger. Su Luo used all of them. However, she was barely able to defend against the attacks of Ling Xianran and could not counterattack. If this continued, the situation would be more and more unfavorable for Su Luo. This was because there was a natural gap of physical strength between men and women. Suddenly, Su Luo's clear eyes flickered. There were still 30 minutes left. Su Luo silently calculated the time in her head. As long as she could withstand another 30 minutes, she would win. Because Chapter 2347, Certain Death 2. Before the match, Ling Xianran had actually been hit by a sword slash from Su Luo. That sword slash was not an ordinary one. In that situation, knowing Ling Xianran was very strong, Su Luo unconsciously applied the poison onto her Chungying sword when she flew onto the stage. The poison was collected from the poisonous teeth of a 10,000-year-old python. Of course, the person who collected it was her master, not her. Back then, when she received a lot of treasures by tricking her master, the toxin from the poisonous teeth of the 10,000-year-old python was one of them. Not too long ago, after her refining skills had improved greatly, she was successful in refining that highly toxic liquid. Su Luo gave it a name, life-ending poison. At that time, Su Luo smeared the life-ending poison on the Chungying sword, which unexpectedly left a wound on Ling Xuanran's wrist. Su Luo couldn't beat Ling Xianran, so why did she dare to sign an agreement to fight to the death with him? Firstly, it was because she wanted to try the power of the life-ending poison. Secondly, it was to force Ling Xianran to work his meridians quickly, which would stimulate the activation of the toxins. And thirdly, it was to use the death match agreement to let Ling Xianran die a death worthy of his name, while allowing the third elder to have a legitimate excuse to seek revenge on her. Therefore, at the very beginning when Su Luo's Chungying sword cut a wound on the back of Ling Xuanran's hand, it was at that moment that he was destined to die. Su Luo knew that if everything went according to her plan, the life-ending poison would take effect within an hour. Half an hour had passed. She only needed to hold out for another half hour. Ling Xianran did not even know that his death was approaching. He was still proud of himself for being able to push Su Luo back repeatedly, making her appear utterly defeated. Bang! Ling Xuanran's sword struck down through the air. Su Luo reacted fast with agility. She dodged over with an instantaneous movement. A deep crack appeared on the battle stage where Ling Xuanran's sword struck. Had Su Luo not dodged quickly enough, she would have been split in half. Nevertheless, Su Luo was still in a mess from dodging. Wench, how dare you hoot about wanting to seek revenge with this meager strength? You're seeking death. Ling Xianran raised his long sword and chased in rage after Su Luo. Ling Xianran knew that there must be a limit to the number of teleports. Once Su Luo ran out of teleports, it would be her time to die. How could one not die in a battle to the death? At this moment, Su Luo dodged on the battle stage while calculating the time based on her physical strength and power. However, after the calculations, there was still a 10-minute gap. Forget it. Let's just fight with my life on the line when the time comes. Unknowingly, the last 10 minutes were up. Su Luo saw that Ling Xuanran's pace was still steady and strong. He had an easy time breathing. He was quick and sharp, and she was starting to get a little impatient. Ling Xianran attacked, right behind her again. Bang, another heavy sword slash descended. At this moment, Su Luo rolled on the ground, avoiding the vital points, but her arm was still wounded by the energy of the sword. Su Luo's right sleeve was cut off, revealing her snow-white wrist that was like a lotus root. On the wrist, a bone-deep wound could be seen, fresh blood like an injection gushing out. Su Luo didn't have time to inspect the wound and instead took another tumble, using the momentum to dodge. At the same time, Ling Xuanran's sword followed closely. Fortunately, Su Luo dodged one step ahead. Otherwise, she would have another wound on her body. In this instance, Su Luo's eyes lit up. The reason was that she felt the little spirit pet sleeping in her space had moved a little. The little spirit pet was an amalgamation of the little nine-tailed spirit fox and the little purple sable. Su Luo called her the little fox sable. Chapter 2348. Certain Death 3. The little fox sable rolled over, yawned, and finally opened its eyes that had been asleep for many days. The little fox sable was simply too magical. Its appearance, which was the combination of all the best traits of the little fox and the little purple sable, looked very adorable and silly, especially cute. Just as Su Luo dodged Ling Xuanran's sword, the little fox sable flew out of Su Luo's space with a whoosh. The little fox sable was extremely fast, so Ling Xianran did not notice this. The little fox sable's clear black eyes swiveled around quickly as it crouched to the ground closely, lurking in place. Ling Xianran had been constantly pursuing Su Luo, so he totally didn't notice that there was an extra little thing on the ground. He passed by the little fox sable and continued to chase with killing intent. However, like how the mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind, Ling Xianran was being followed by the palm-sized little thing. Then, almost in the blink of an eye, the small figure moved quickly. Its small claws hooked into Ling Xuanran's back, and with one pounce, it climbed up easily and freely. What is this thing? Ling Xianran felt an ominous premonition surface in his heart. Ka-ching! The little fox sable directed itself towards Ling Xuanran's neck and bit down fiercely. All the crowd let out a cry of shock. As a 4-star saint rank, Ling Xuanran's abilities were very powerful. How fast was that little thing if it could actually bite down on Ling Xuanran's neck like that? The little fox sable was very intelligent. After biting down, its limbs flicked about nimbly, and it quickly went into the back folds of Ling Xuanran's clothes. That palm-sized little thing appeared very small. Even if it was in the back of Ling Xuanran's clothes, one could only see a small little lump there. However, Ling Xianran couldn't bear it at all. After all, that lump was a living thing. Furthermore, its teeth were particularly good, and its bite was strong enough to sink into flesh. When the little fox sable bit into Ling Xuanran's spine, Ling Xianran almost leaped in pain. He could practically feel that little thing biting into his bone marrow. Die! Ling Xianran was so furious that he slapped his palm towards his back. His other hand was still holding his sword to chase after Su Luo, so he couldn't spare that hand. Only his left hand was available. By the time Ling Xianran exerted his left hand's strength and slapped down fiercely, the little thing had already nimbly moved away. As for Ling Xianran himself, his own slap caused him to stumble. If not for him trying his best to regain control, he would have essentially fallen forward onto the ground. At this moment, the figure of the little thing fell freely and dropped onto Ling Xuanran's butt. Ling Xianran was about to go crazy from anger. Meanwhile, when Su Luo saw the momentum of the fight shift in her favor, she pretended to continue running. However, she had long ago calculated for this opening. She took advantage of Ling Xuanran's unpreparedness and turned back with a slash of her sword. Su Luo and the little fox sable were contracted as equals, so they naturally could communicate with their minds. She told the little fox sable to harass Ling Xianran and to anger him. Additionally, she noted that it was best to keep Ling Xuanran's attention on his upper half. The little fox sable was very smart and understood with just this little bit of instruction. It shifted its focus and instantly flew onto Ling Xuanran's head. Stretching out its little claws, the little fox sable began to pull at Ling Xuanran's hair, tugging the strands out one by one. This reminded Su Luo of the little divine dragon in the past. It was also cute and loved to play and make trouble just like this. However, Su Luo didn't have the time to reminisce. She took advantage of Ling Xuanran's unpreparedness and teleported to his side, aiming for his legs. Ling Xuanran's knee was struck with the sword. Su Luo's single move was victorious, and she retreated quickly. At this time, the little fox sable felt quite troubled because Ling Xianran had decided to forego fighting Su Luo and focus on dealing with it instead. Chapter 2349, Certain Death 4. In terms of actual strength, even its little master was no match for Ling Xianran. So how could the little fox sable fight him? The instant Ling Xianran used his full force against the little fox sable, it would be difficult for it to hold on to its life. So, the little fox sable sprinted away in the exact opposite direction of Su Luo so quickly that it looked like it was flying. At this time, Ling Xianran could only choose one of the two. Should he choose Su Luo or the little fox sable? Ling Xianran didn't say another word and directly chose the little fox sable. It wasn't just because the little fox sable was easy to deal with, but also because he hated this little thing the most. Just now the little fox sable had committed a huge offense against him. As long as he killed the little fox sable, the situation would definitely return to when he previously held the advantage. So, Ling Xianran didn't say another word and went to kill the little fox sable. Su Luo's eyes watched as Ling Xianran chased the little fox sable. This time, the situation was reversed, and she was the one stuck to Ling Xuanran's back. She followed behind him, stabbing with her sword from time to time. However, because the stabs of her sword only pierced the skin, Ling Xianran did not care to respond. In contrast to Ling Xuanran's disinterest, the corners of Su Luo's mouth curled up icily, and a treacherous chill flashed across the depths of her eyes. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Su Luo stabbed Ling Xianran 49 times with her sword. With the addition of the little fox sable, the situation had now completely turned around. Ling Xianran was at a disadvantage. Behind Ling Xianran, Su Luo raised her Chungying sword, fiercely slashing down towards his head. Butterflies fluttered about in the third elder's stomach. She knew that it was impossible for Ling Xianran to dodge this move. One could only see her fingers flick, and a soundless ice soul ruthlessly shot out towards Su Luo's hand. At the same time, the sixth elder held another dark-colored pill. Although the speed at which the pill flew out was later than the ice soul, it smashed hard into the ice soul regardless. Sure, there was a slight ringing sound. Both the ice soul and the pill turned into powder at the same time, disappearing into the air as if they had never existed. Old Sixth, the third elder, was so furious her lungs were on the verge of exploding, but now was not the time for her to be impetuous. She spun around, then a white light swiftly burst out towards the battle stage. The sixth elder was deeply afraid that Su Luo would suffer a loss, so he followed and flew over to shield her. The third elder indeed wanted to take advantage of the chaos and get revenge. She shot an ice soul straight towards Su Luo's eyebrows. Fortunately, the sixth elder was shielding Su Luo from the front. With a wave of his sleeve, the ice soul immediately turned into powder. "The competition ends here. Everyone stop!" the third elder shouted. Su Luo smiled coldly. The third elder was shouting to stop now only after seeing that Ling Xianran was at a disadvantage and could not avoid this sword slash. Why didn't she say it was over earlier? Since we signed a life and death contract, this should end with the death of one of the parties. Although the third elder is an elder, I'm afraid it's not too good to intervene openly like this, right? Su Luo's cold eyes looked directly at the third elder. The third elder arrogantly raised her chin as her cold eyes swept across the stage. "Who dares to criticize me? Stand up." "Third elder, isn't this obviously an act of bullying? considering how this is clearly breaking the rules of the competition. Su Luo continued piling up the third elder's offenses. The third elder used her identity as an older person to lecture Su Luo. For a girl of such a young age to be so ruthless in utilizing cruel means, opening and closing her mouth with the intention of killing others. How will you marry in the future? Su Luo could barely restrain herself from wildly laughing out loud. So, according to you, I should just stand still and let Ling Xianran kill me. This way, I won't be ruthless in utilizing cruel means. It won't be vicious, right? Su Luo laughed coldly. Su Luo's words were each filled with righteousness and self-confidence. Each sentence resounded clearly and powerfully, trapping the third elder in a corner. That you're tuning into the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.